Hey guys, and welcome to Under Construction. Let's make our Bunnies part 8. So last week I had a little problem with something that was happening, and I would say that we would tidy it up before we would continue. So let's do that first. Let's just click play here. Now the problem was that when you tap the bunnies and this instruction screen was up, sometimes they would respond to a click. Now as you see, it's not happening right now. However, if we start the game, play for a bit, go back, come back in, and now we tap the bunnies, then you see it is now going to respond to a click. So what's actually happening here is we've got a little variable here called playing. Now as soon as you start the game by playing the info, by clicking the instruction screen away, playing gets set to true, and then every time you click a bunny it gets set to false, then next round it gets set to true again. So what is actually happening is if we quit the game and the playing variable is currently true, it doesn't get reset on the next time we go in, and it actually allows you to tap the bunnies again. So what we need to do is just copy playing is false, and we need to set it right here at the start. This is where we're destroying our symbols that are being created, so we are preloading them in a way, and everything else just the initial setup before we start the game. Okay, so that's what we do, and now it should respond correctly. So if you start the game, everything's good. Now if you come back and tap again, nothing is happening, which is perfect, and that's exactly what we want. Now again, I'm working on a little example I've set up here, but let's just look at the sizes of this. 576, 96. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to add a timer, a countdown timer. So right now we've got a game, we're tapping the bunnies, seeing which one is the odd one out, but there's not much danger of, there is no stakes, so we need to make it a little bit more of a game by adding some danger element, which is going to be a timer in our case. So what I'm going to do is double click, we're on our content layer, I'm going to add a sprite, just going to select a color that is as close to yellow as possible. I like yellow for a countdown timer, so we're just going to do this, something like that. And we're going to, now the way I would normally set up a timer, a simple way would be by just feeling out what size I like it to be by doing something like this, okay, more or less. And so in this case you see it's a 592 by 112. I know that the one I made over here is 576 by 96, so we're just going to go with that because that's the size I like, and the one I prepared. But again, this is completely up to you guys. Okay, so this is the size. We're going to make sure that it's nicely placed. Over here is fine. If I want it to be exactly in the middle, I would just change my grid here. As you see, if I wanted it to be the same distance from this little area and the bottom, then change your distance to be a little bit, I think that's not even either. I think it would need to be 4 by 4, but hey, this is good enough. I'll just leave it as it is. Okay, all right, so we've got our countdown. Let's call it that exactly, countdown. Okay, not Z, countdown. Okay, perfect. Okay, and now what we need to do is we're going to make a little background for this countdown timer. So right click on it, go clone object type, paste that here, double click it, and we're going to make this one black, and gonna move it behind, sorry, on top, and just stretch it out a little bit so it's a little bit bigger. And now we're going to do to go Command Shift down to send it backwards. You can also obviously, like I've explained before, right click, oh wait a second, right click and go align, no, Z order, and send to the bottom of layer. Okay, or you can move it to another layer as well. And now I'm just going to copy that same sprite. It's called Countdown 2 right now. Let's rename it to Countdown BG. Okay, and we're going to, we don't really need to clone it again, so I'm just going to copy it. Okay, so we go Command C on Mac. There. And I'm just going to make it about half size, drag it on top. Okay, I really wanted to sit right at the bottom, nicely lined up. So what I might need to do is I'm just going to reduce this down to 4x4 so it lines up nicely. You can also change the anchor point, but in our case this is easier. And I'm going to change the opacity to 10%. Now as you see, that this creates a nice little shading effect in a way. Now the only one out of these three that we're going to be using is the countdown in code. Okay, so what we're going to do is add behaviors, add behavior and tween, and that's it. Okay, so we've got our time down set up. Now we're going to go into game. As you see, when we tap our pop-up info, so I'll just play this game again. So everything is nicely sitting there, nothing's happening. As soon as you click play, and it goes away and the bunnies pop up, we want the countdown timer to start. So what we're going to do is, right here where playing is being set to true, we're going to add another action. Going to go countdown, tween, and we're going to tween one property, width down to 0 over, let's say, give the player 20 seconds. Sounds like a good time. And linear. We don't want it to start fast and slow down or anything. We just want it to constantly keep a constant speed all the way down to 0. Okay. And so now, again, nothing's happening. Tap play. And the countdown timer starts. Now, as you see, what's happening now is it's weirdly scaling down towards the center. Well, we can fix this in a very simple way. We're going to tap on the countdown, look at our action point, registration point, or origin point, and right click, quick assign, and left. So we move it over here. Okay. Let's drag it back. Press play. All right, pretty simple. That's all working nicely. Okay, so what we want to do now is e-game over here. We are going to now make sure that when the timer finishes, that something happens. Now, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to reduce the timer. Okay, not there. I'm going to reduce the countdown to something like 3 seconds, okay, just so we can see what happens. Let's tap play. Once we reach 0, you can still interact with the bunnies. Nothing happens currently, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this, drag it down here, and we're going to give it a title. This is just for organization, nothing else. And we're going to call it misc for miscellaneous. And down here, we're going to add, oh, one more thing before we do that. Our countdown tween that we're doing, we need to give it a name, okay? So we're going to give it a name of countdown. Over here, countdown, like that, okay? Now, we have that set up. Now, under misc, we're going to go to countdown and tween. On finished, we don't use on any finished or any of the other ones. It needs to be on finished because it allows you to use the tag countdown. So when the tween countdown is finished, we want something to happen. So in our case, what we have here is we're only able to tap the bunnies, if you see, if the variable playing is true. So what we want to do here is once the countdown has finished, we're going to set the variable playing to false. So if we try this again, right now we can tap the bunnies, okay? As soon as the countdown finishes, we can still tap the bunnies. So something went wrong. So what we want to do, we've got playing, okay, on countdown finished. What did I do wrong here? Let's have a look. Oh, it's being reset every time. Okay. What we actually need to do instead of using this variable, as you see, because what's happening is if I end up tapping the bunnies just at the right time, let's have a look at this. Click that. I'm going to tap the bunnies now. Okay, let's try one more time. I'm going to tap the bunny one time here. Let's leave it. Now the variable is being set to false, as you see. However, what's happening is if I tap the bunny just before the timer is out, the bunny hides. It is still in the process of running through its little loop, okay? And when it hides, it's supposed to wait a quarter of a second or something like that, and then the variable playing becomes true again. So technically we're setting it to false when the timer runs out, but if the bunnies are just about to be set to true again, they'll reset and come back up, so we're still able to play. So what we actually need to do is we need to set up another variable in this case, and another boolean, and we'll call it game over, something separate from that one, okay, because that one gets reset. So let's set up another one, add global variable, and go game over, and we're going to call it boolean. Okay, now we're going to go down here, we're just going to copy this line, and we're going to select game over. Now if we touch bunny and it's not game over, so we'll invert this, and we're playing, okay, then you're able to interact. So whatever right here, what we're going to do is instead of playing to false, we're going to set game over to false. Now game over only ever gets set to false when the timer runs out, so we're not playing with it in any other conditions or actions or anything, okay? So let's give it a go. Now we should be able to tap the bunnies as much as we want, and when we run out, no. Okay, let's see what we did wrong now. Oh, right. Okay. Not having a good day when it comes to variables. Basically what we're doing is when it's not game over, we're allowed to play. However, what we're doing down here is we should be setting game over to true, not to false, okay? So let's redo this. As you see, everybody makes mistakes, even I do. When I'm doing these tutorials, as much as I've done my little preparation and everything, I still screw up. So there you go, only human. All right, so we've got our variable set correctly now, and in third time lucky, this should work properly, okay? So let's give it a go. Okay, we're tapping, tapping, tapping. All right, as you see, this now works correctly. Now we will need to reset the game over variable at the start, just like we reset the playing variable, okay? So we need to set game over to false when we come back, otherwise we won't be able to start the game. Now, because it was set to true, so it was game over, so you'd never be able to start the game again. Okay, let's give it a go. Tapping, 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 everything's good. Can't tap the bunnies anymore. Let's go back, tap again, and should be able to play. Awesome, everything's working perfectly. Okay, so what we want to do now is, now that we finally got everything set up, we want some sort of feedback when the game finishes, okay? So what I've done here is I've got a bit of text that pops up. It's a little game over message. So let's add one more sprite. Sprite. I've got odd bunnies over here, text game over. Okay, we're just going to check it over here to the side. Now we're going to add behaviors, fade, and we're going to have it fade in for 0.25 seconds, wait for 1 second, and then fade back out over 0.25 seconds and destroy it. Okay, simple as that. Now we're going to add one more behavior, and that behavior is going to be tween. Okay, let's go to game, and what we're going to do is at the start just like these ones. We're going to destroy it. We're preloading it here, so there's no pause or little jerk in the game. Let's just change the symbol to okay, we just replace it, and we're going to make sure we call it text game over here, so we're not confused. Text game over. Let's have a look. Awesome. Text game over, destroy. Okay, now that's all set up, everything is good. What we need to do now is, when the countdown finishes, we create text game over, create object over here, text game over, let's just type it in. Okay, we're going to create it at layer content. See, that's our layer over here. We've only got 2, especially if you're using the free edition. And in the middle of the screen, 320 by 480, because that's exactly the center. Okay, now we're going to set its size, text game over, set scale to 0.25, which is about a quarter of its size. I don't like starting it from 0. I like it to start a little bit bigger. To me, it looks a little bit funny when it starts at 0 and gets bigger. So again, personal preference. And what we're going to do now is add a little tween, add condition, sorry, add action. I'm never going to get the condition actions right. I'm always messing that up. We're going to go to tween to properties, and we're going to go size. We don't need to name it, and we're just going to tween it to the original image size. Okay, so in this case that would be self dot image width and self dot image height. That way you don't have to remember that, you know, pixel width and height of it. And we're going to go over to 0.25 seconds because that's how long our fade takes. And we're going to select out back, and for that it's going to come out and come back a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go done, and we're going to wait 1 second, just like the fade does. 1 second, and then we're going to tween it back. All right, we're going to tween it back to a quarter of its size where it started. So we're going to tween it to its original image height divided by 4. Okay, so again, quarter of the size, just like it started. And this time we're going to go in back. In back, it means that once it's weighted, it's going to get a little bit bigger and then disappear, so get smaller. It's like a little bit of anticipation effect. Done. And once that's done, we're going to wait again. We're going to wait 0.25 seconds. That's exactly the amount of time it takes to disappear. And then we're going to add another action, system and layout. We're going to go layout. We're going to go to layout menu. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, playing. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. Okay, I think we're doing well here. Awesome. Now, one more thing I would like to happen is I would like a little bit of a fade in as well. We are fading into the scene and everywhere else, but in this case we're not. So let's have a look in our e-command sheet. And what we basically do with the fader here is all we're doing is changing its opacity, and then every time a tween is playing, the fade opacity, the layer opacity is copying the fader's opacity. Okay, so what we need to do is basically just copy this line and go into here, just where we're just before we're waiting the 0.25 seconds, we're going to paste this line. Okay, so when the disappear text tween starts, when it starts fading out and getting smaller, that's also when our fade out is going to start. Okay, so we're just going to call it fade out. Not that we need to in this case. I don't think we're using this anywhere, but let's just keep it uniform. And what we're going to do is we need to fade it to 100, so full opacity. Okay, so let's have a look and see what happens. So we tap, little fade out, perfect. And as you see, I mean, I'm just going to try and tap the bunnies while nothing is going on. So one more time, Everything is responding correctly. The bunny should stay at the top and nothing is happening while I'm tapping them. So if you play this properly over 3 seconds, we score 2 points. There you go. I am going to change it back to, where is our tween? Down here. 20 seconds. And I'm going to give it a really quick play. And then we'll be done for today. All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Obviously, we need a little bit of juicing in here to make it a little bit more exciting, but it's now become a game with a little bit something at stake, right? 12. Okay, 12 is my high score. So what I would like to do next week is possibly check the high score on the main screen. So when you start over here, you can see what your high score was. Maybe save the high score. We'll see if I can do that. Local storage, something like that. Maybe a little bit of juicing. We might have to separate it into a few more episodes just so we don't focus on too much in one episode. Otherwise, it gets a little bit convoluted. But I think so far I like the way we've been going, focusing on a small part every time and stacking onto it, right? So yeah, like I said, it's coming together. Game is actually becoming a little bit of a game. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to make sure that I've updated all the files for you so you guys can download the project in progress and have a play with it. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys in the next Under Construction.